Welcome, Jon.
Thank you, Kirsty. It's really good to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Oh, no, my pleasure. So, our listeners on the B2B CRO podcast are B2B marketers who are really trying to get to grips with their conversion rate optimization across the board. And obviously, being Webio, we are very focused on the B2B website. But what I love about you guys and what you do is you think about that B2B customer journey as a complete experience, the website being part of it. And I found it fascinating reading the blog and the content that you guys had written most recently about this need on ABM to make a shift away from what we all know as ABM, as in account-based marketing, to more focusing on account-based experiences. Can you go into a little bit more detail as to what you mean about that?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing, the term ABM by definition, the letter M stands for marketing, right? Which really is only part of the story and misses the whole kind of revenue generation piece, the revenue ops piece. And so when organizations in today's market really need to think about how they deliver sustainable, profitable revenue growth, they need to think beyond just marketing. And so from the customer's perspective, it's not just about winning new customers. Clearly, that's super important, right? And a major proportion of the budget is allocated to winning new customers, and that won't change. But really, for organizations in the current market to be super successful and competitive and deliver growth in a sustainable, profitable way, they've got to think about account-based experiences that spans across the entire customer lifecycle. So that really means bringing together the same consistent experiences as customers go through the buying journey, but also that goes beyond acquisition right through the entire lifecycle. So that then brings into play business development teams, it brings in sales, it brings in customer success. And so really account-based experiences is really about thinking about, well, how do you implement a strategy that delivers consistent customer experiences throughout all of those teams, throughout that entire customer life cycle? And how does that then really help you as an organization to win more customers in a more effective way, but also keep customers for longer as a direct result?
Yeah, and it's so funny that we're having this conversation now, because this morning we met with a potential new supplier for our customer success software, and they were talking to us about how they came about, and a big part of it was recognizing that most of their revenue and their potential revenue sat within their existing customer base, and that everybody was devoted to sales and how are we going to get more through the front door. But the reality was that they had this group of customers sitting there that had a huge potential in white space, cross-sell, upsell, and they weren't doing anything to talk to those or talk to them effectively. So that's really interesting, because when I was looking at it, I was going, okay, well, I get the experience, because when I think about, and I've been agency world, so I feel I'm okay to say this, quite a lot of the time, client-side teams want to tie stuff into campaigns. They'll go, right, well, we just want to do this campaign and then we'll stop. But what you're saying is you can't do that. It's a journey. And so you can't just run a quick ABM campaign, get some leads and then job done. It's like, okay, how are we going to really think about the part that marketing and all of those functions play in that customer journey? And then I suppose a question for you on that, how do you as an agency get alongside those customers to support them with that? Because typically, you're always involved at the front end in demand gen, but you're obviously educating B2B teams about how they need to focus on this. So what's your process in terms of getting alongside them and making sure that they're delivering those account-based experience?
I think there's two things. There's, at a strategic level, it's about how can we help our clients who are typically in the marketing role. So, the marketing leader right down to the teams that are doing the more tactical execution. They sometimes struggle to grab the attention of their board, of their leadership team. And quite often budgets are squeezed. And particularly when, at the moment, the economic climate's quite tough, right? And so one of the first budgets that tends to be reduced is the marketing budget. And that's partly because the leadership team in those organizations finds it much harder to measure the impact that marketing has upon what they care about most, the metrics that they focus on, which is, yes, it's revenue, but it's also profitable revenue growth. And certainly in my experience and, having been in agency side and client side and also vendor side, so I've kind of got a unique perspective from that point of view. And in my last job, it was a SaaS company.
Yeah,
we were focused on a daily basis on key metrics like, the cost of acquiring customers and customer lifetime value. And those types of metrics really give you a real indication as to how operationally efficient your business is. So marketing, I think, has a real role to play in aligning with all of the revenue operations teams right beyond acquisition through the whole life cycle of customers to say, okay, how can we help to improve those metrics and help the business to be more profitable? So grow quickly, but grow profitably. And we're seeing at the current climate that there is a mind shift, change away from growth at any cost to profitable growth at any cost. Because businesses are under a lot of pressure to prove that. And so I think ABX gives a real grounding to understand, well, if that's the North Star, if that's the goal that we need to aim for, how do we deliver that tactically across all of our campaigns? And you're absolutely right. Just delivering campaigns that stop at the point of the end of the marketing journey is not enough. It needs to go beyond that. And so account-based experiences, as we've said before, gives you the tactical approach to think about, okay, we want to deliver personalized experiences to organizations we want to win as customers. Great. But then how do we keep customers for as long as possible? And how do we upsell and cross-sell to them at the appropriate time with the value propositions, the products and services that we think those clients want? And by doing that, does that keep them for longer so that you can kind of get to the bottom line where you can say, for every $1 we spend on winning a customer, can we get at least $3 or more in customer lifetime revenue? Because at that point, the operational efficiency of the business is where it needs to be. Yeah. And you can then say to the board, hey, let's just pump more money into this because we're going to get a 3 times or higher return on the investment we put into winning these customers.
Yeah. That utopian, LTV CAC of 3 to 1. And so let's just so honing in on what you said about lifetime value, obviously it depends on the organization, but if you are going to do ABX, you really want to invest in running the activity to your most valued potential prospects, most valued customers. And so identifying who are your ICP, who are the customers that are going to give you that premium lifetime value is probably really, really important. I don't see as many marketers as should be really looking at that. And sometimes it's not their fault because the organization doesn't share it, well. So you say, what does a good sale look like? Like, what characteristics do you need within the customer to ensure they stay with you for a long time? How do you help your clients get that insight that they need to be able to really drive more of those profitable customers through the front door?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I think you're right that there aren't enough organizations that really delve deep into this bit of work, and it's really important to invest in this because the dividends will be paid out if you get it right. What we tend to do at Transmission is that we will our strategy teams will engage with all of the stakeholders within our client organizations, and they'll run a simple workshop, and they'll guide them on the journey, and they'll look at, okay, who are your best customers? How much do they spend? How frequently do they buy from you? How long do they stay with you? And these are the foundational metrics that we need to understand, and gives us a really good grounding in terms of, well, okay, once we've understood your best customers, that if we can go and find more that look like that, then there is a sort of a hypothesis that they potentially going to have similar pains, similar business gains from investing in you, and therefore you can articulate the value that you've delivered for companies that look like them, that have similar pain and gains. And then once you win them as clients, the hypothesis is that you potentially can follow a similar path, and therefore increase your conversion to win, but also the lifetime value at the same time. So you're doing that groundwork is really important, and building out an ideal customer profile that goes beyond just company firmographics, sector size and geos, but really delves into what are the trigger points that companies end up kind of buying from you or a competitor, and how do you solve the pain? Is the pain big enough for them to invest, and what value can you give them over the long haul? All of those things really help you to build an ICP approach that is going to enable you in your go-to-market strategy to be more successful and deliver on those objectives that we've been talking about.
Yeah, so that was really interesting what you just said there about we should be doing segmented marketing anyway. That's not ABM. We know we're successful in manufacturing or we're successful in finance, but your point around identifying businesses that perhaps are in their own customer life cycle and coming to a tipping point where they might need your services, or they're growing at a certain level, or they're moving to a different part of all the things that perhaps are unique to a business, or where ABX really comes into its own, because you're saying we understand you and your challenges and your issues and exactly where you are now. So you're going through that journey with the customer. So then I guess all of your ABX strategies are quite unique.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think that there's two things I think also to consider. Firstly, it's doing that upfront work based upon what's happened in the past. So, looking at your best customers, as we said, and looking at historical trends. But there's also, in parallel to that, is being able to, in a very agile way, capture what's happening now and how that changes. So not just relying upon what's happened in the past, but also combining that with when you've built an audience that matches your ideal customer profile, and you start to then go into market and activate those audiences into your campaigns, being able to pick up on engagement activity, identify who those audiences are, and maybe overlay some layer of intent off the back of it, is also just as important, because it's really it's essential to try and work out how things are changing inside the organizations that you're targeting, who's in market and who's not, what are they particularly showing interest around, what content, what campaigns are working most effectively across different accounts. And, you could have lots of different buying groups if you're targeting enterprise organizations in the same account, and they may be behaving slightly differently or looking like they've got different needs and interests. So being able to dynamically cater for that and adapt how you engage and how you personalize those experiences, not necessarily on the fly, but as agile as you can make it, is also important.
Yeah, so that combination of like the upfront work, which is so important to make sure that you are focused on the right accounts based on history, but then using those digital signals once your activity starts to be agile with it and develop it accordingly. Go, actually, look, these guys look like they're showing a lot of intent, so let's focus some energies here. And where do you see the website fitting into that? I'm going to mention that as Webio. I guess it's pretty important. I guess I know it's important, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on around that. But how would you use that as part of an ABX journey?
So I think the website's just so important for so many reasons. It's a shop window into your organization for sure. It's a representation of your brand to help you drive awareness and create the right perceptions. And that's important because one of the things that we always say to our clients is that however you've defined your ideal customer profile and then mapped out your total addressable market off the back of that, there's roughly about 5% of your market will be in market right now. And so the vast majority, roughly 95%, won't be. But you should be marketing to both in different ways. Clearly, the ones that are in market, it's a bit more direct, it's a bit more solution-led. Whereas the ones that are not, it's about building awareness, making sure the perceptions of your brand are positive and, being known for what you want to be known for and how you differentiate, because at some point they will be in market and you want them to come to you. And so the website plays a pivotal role in your ability to do that. Mm-hmm. It helps you to, beyond that, also create demand and capture that demand. So, you want through that, creating awareness, enforcing the right perceptions in your market that you want to engage with, but you provide them with a really engaging experience when they actually take the time to click on an ad, respond to an email, search for something and end up on your website. That's your best opportunity to then get on the front foot and to start to build out that consistent user or customer experience right from the beginning. And it's like anything, kind of brand perceptions and opinions are formed quite quickly by the market. And so you've got to get on the front foot and start positively. But then, it's about, okay, once you've converted them in some way into an engaged audience, how do you maintain that throughout that entire journey and life cycle? And the website gives you the hub to be able to do that most effectively and build out those personalized experiences at the same time.
Yeah, because that, I think we all know at the start of a journey, probably they started the journey somewhere else, but they'll come to the website when they are ready to start to have their journey with you. But then throughout it's really important that, like you said, you start to talk to them differently depending on where they are within the funnel. So are they just they're still at thought leadership stage and they just want to consume as much as they can for now? Or are they, moving towards a demo request or had a demo request, they're in pipeline? So I agree with you. I think, personalization isn't just okay, we personalize to them at the start and then the rest of it sits with sales. It has to be the whole journey, and the website is the best place to do that. And then if you've created, so as your clients, lead agency in their ABX strategy, obviously you can control what happens digitally for them, and you can, control what happens on the website and how you talk to customers there. But in the non-digital world, how do you translate that same ABX experience? So I guess I'm thinking, SaaS particularly with things like events and your SDR team, and how do you make sure that they are sharing the same messages, that you have captured all that insight across and are pushing out in your marketing strategy, that they're also following through on that?
That's a really good question. I think it's really important to think about offline and online in the same context, as you rightly say. And, we look at it in transmission as like a go-to-market approach, which, like we said, earlier, it involves marketing, it involves your BDRs, SDRs, it involves sales and, customer success. It can also involve product and the service teams as well, because, they're all aligned. And if you think about it, that, people make buying decisions inside of organizations based upon human experiences. They are not always formed from online experiences alone. Now, clearly digital is important, and it's going to be increasingly so, because as everybody gets older, and the millennials are now kind of in jobs that end up becoming more sort of buying, decision making jobs, they're going to naturally be more digitally native, and so that's only going to continue to be the case. Having said that, as human beings, we make decisions quite often in emotive ways, and our experiences are formed by those interactions with a brand, and it's not always online. So you could be at an event, you could be at an exhibition that you've been invited to, by a potential vendor that you are considering. And therefore, it's really important to make sure that the consistency around those brand experiences are matched offline and online, because they're going to form their opinions through every interaction. And that represents your brand, and they'll form those opinions. It's not just B2C where that's important, it's also important for B2B. And so what we're seeing now, and what we are doing really well with a lot of our clients, is helping them to build that offline and online strategy as part of the overall ABX approach across their entire go-to-market motion.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's probably quite a significant piece of work. How do you get the buy-in from the organization to really embrace that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is being able to demonstrate to the key stakeholders where are all of these interactions, where do they take place? And they're not always visible. So the first challenge is being able to map all of those interactions and those customer touch points. And then the second challenge is, can you attribute the touch points that are more likely to convert ultimately to revenue? So if you can do that kind of full closed loop reporting and attribution, then you can start to demonstrate to the business the customer touch points, doesn't matter whether it's offline or online, that are more likely to lead to a revenue outcome. And then you're in really good shape to kind of start to think about, where do we invest the most to deliver the greatest impact on revenue?
Yeah, and I expect if you've done the work in advance to really define those ICPs and the businesses where you are going to get revenue, the organization will be bought into giving those a white glove experience. So we are Webio, and we are very focused on personalization. Obviously, it's been a hygiene factor. We talk to customers a lot about this. It's been a hygiene factor in B2C for many, many years now. And as a consumer, like, I expect it. It's a hygiene factor. Like, I wouldn't want to put Netflix on and, not present me with a list of things that I should be watching, or go onto Amazon and not make me recommendations. But us as B2B counterparts are a little bit behind the curve. First of all, why do you think that is? And then why do you think it is so important that we really embrace that?
I think you're right. There are levels of personalization that we see our clients are able to deliver. And I think that any organization in today's market that is not embracing personalization, and this isn't just about, putting logos on web pages and on content. This is really truly building out those personalized customer experiences like we've been talking about today. And I think the organizations that don't do it, they're going to be beaten by their competition, because quite frankly, B2B buyers expect you to know what they want and when they want it and how they like to engage with a vendor and how that changes over time. And so there's no excuse, I don't think, in today's market for not getting that right. And we see the performance of brands that really embrace that challenge and tackle it head on and make the right investment choices are the ones that outperform the competition. They'll grow market share faster. They'll grow more profitably. They'll improve the bottom line more effectively, and as a consequence, they'll get more investment into their organization to be able to do these things. So I think it's gone beyond table stakes. It's now an essential in order to be successful in today's marketplace. And so personalization for me is really about linking needs and wants and being able to adjust throughout that sort of nurture flow, that whole customer engagement life cycle, how you deliver content-based experiences, and you can dynamically change and evolve over time as the customer goes through the buying journey. And then when they become a customer, it's about switching to a upsell, cross-sell, churn protection mode. So very subtle differences, but it's all based upon, at the end of the day, understanding what your customers want at any point in time.
Yeah. And of course, every organization, it requires a level of segmentation, because you said, yes, there's firmographic data and there's stuff that about the organization, but then at the next level down, there's persona. So who are those different buyers? And then at the next level down, it's like funnel stage. And actually, some of those personas can be at different funnel stages. So, if you're really taking this seriously, that's the level you've got to go to. And it's not going to pay I think that's, again, speaking from agency world, you probably agree with this. It's not an overnight quick fix, though. You've got to go into this going, okay, patience, it will happen. But like you say, the organizations who are doing it right are the ones who are seeing the results.
Yeah, and it can be a little bit scary. It can feel a bit daunting up front when you think of it like that, because it's like, okay, how do we do this? How do we, it feels quite advanced, quite sophisticated. But I think with the technologies that are available today, like Webio, you have a real kind of head start with your ability to be able to be more sophisticated. And I think that the way that you can start to build confidence around that is to, start relatively small and then build on some success that is tangible enough to the business to say, hey, look, as a result of doing this level of personalization and being able to map, what customer behaviors are telling us to how best we can respond with account-based experiences that are really going to resonate with our audience, and we can demonstrate as a consequence it's driving more engagement. That engagement is helping us to convert more marketing qualified leads. More of those marketing qualified leads and time then convert to pipeline and then convert to revenue. You're not necessarily going to go from A to B to C, in one step, but you can build incremental steps that help you to get there and keep your stakeholders on board, because you're building out a story that is tangible and it's underpinned by, look at the value that we're helping to deliver to the business that is really going to move the needle in the right direction from a commercial perspective. And I think if you can build that story out, if you can then frame it in a way that everybody understands and actually gets excited about, I think it then becomes easier, and you can you can take bite-sized chunks to kind of get to the holy grail.
Yeah, of course. And I think, that's really important. It's small wins along the way, isn't it? So technology, you mentioned go-to technologies for ABX. Aside from obviously what you're doing with WebEO, what are your other hero pieces of technology that you see as a really important part of an ABX strategy?
So I think you need some kind of data platform. We use CDP, for example. That gives us the ability to build and discover audiences. It also gives us the opportunity to enrich an audience that a client might give us from their CRM or from their marketing automation platform. Now that's particularly unique to us because we're an agency and we're doing this for lots of different clients globally. But we know that that's important as a foundational layer because it's garbage in, garbage out, right? If your data's poor from the get-go, you're on the back foot straight away. And we're yet to see too many clients that have got outstanding data that's really clean and fit for purpose, within these tools. So that's the first bit. And then it gives us the ability to then segment audiences based upon some kind of logic, right? Measurement and attribution platforms, really important, because, it gives you the ability to work out what's working and what's not, test hypotheses to determine whether you can deliver the outcomes you're looking for or not. And, you're never going to get everything right 100% of the time, but it's all about sort of, testing a hypothesis, failing fast, and then learning from it and optimizing and iterating and getting to the right outcome as quickly as you can. And that really needs the ability to kind of measure what works and what doesn't and attribute it back to what channels, what campaigns, what content are really positively impacting on the revenue outcomes that we're targeting. And I say revenue, because that's the metric that matters most. MQLs are great, but they're not good enough on their own. Really, they're not revenue based. But if we're looking at how much engagement converts to an MQL, then an SQL, and then pipeline, and then revenue, that becomes more meaningful for your leadership team, and they can invest against it. Clearly, you've got to have all the other tools. The kind of usual suspects, the CRMs and the marketing automation platforms, but the ability to link all of these tools together to give you the opportunity to do those things, to discover, enrich those audiences, to target them in a very sophisticated way, and to be able to identify those audiences and engage with them and deliver that personalization that ultimately leads to the value and the return on investment. There are some really key tools that I think are important in the tech stack. But what we do tend to see is that most tech stacks in many clients are too large. They're too bloated and overly complex. I think there is a big opportunity to kind of really just pare back and simplify by looking at, well, what is it we're trying to do? What are our key use cases here? How can we deliver all of this in the most cost-efficient way? Because at the end of the day, reducing the cost of acquiring customers as well as extending customer lifetime value is important. And you're only going to do that if your operational costs are manageable and they're going either down or they're staying static and not going up.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Well, I mean, Jon, I've got some key takeaways here. I mean, I'm aligned with you on this one. It's all about the revenue. When we're working with customers, it is about, okay, what can we drive in terms of value to the bottom line? Because yes, we can all generate lots more leads, but ultimately a business isn't going to continue to invest in that if those leads aren't converting into long-term high-value customers. And then it's all about the data and finally patience on that journey. Now, I know that some of our listeners will be thinking, okay, this sounds really interesting. How do I talk to the team at Transmission about my challenges around ABX? How would they reach you?
So I think, We always recommend you kind of following us on LinkedIn, following us on our social channels, and going to our website. We're very active and talking about all of the best practice, all of the learnings that we have captured from being a global agency, and we've got teams in all of the key regions that we operate in that are really here to engage with anyone that has a need, an interest, a question. So they can follow us on all of those social channels, and we'd love to talk to people. So I think
brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jon. It was fascinating to hear about your approach, and it's I think we are absolutely moving way beyond the traditional ABM strategy that we've seen maybe like 10 years ago, and it's great to see that you guys are leading the charge. I'm sure our listeners will get lots of actionable insight from our chat today.
Thank you very much.